If you grew up any time between the early 90s and the late 2000s, there's a good chance that Cartoon Network didn't just entertain you, it helped raise you. This wasn't just a normal TV channel, it was a cultural crash course, a place where absurd comedy, emotional storytelling, experimental animation, and this groundbreaking thing called anime all collided under one logo. Today we're diving into why Cartoon Network really mattered, how it evolved, and how Toonami quietly reshaped an entire generation's relationship with animation. Cartoon Network launched in 1992 with a simple but powerful idea: cartoons all the time. At first, it leaned heavily on the classics: Looney Tunes, The Flintstones, Scooby-Doo, and Tom and Jerry. And these weren't just reruns, they were a shared cultural language. Kids and parents could sit on the couch and enjoy the same shows without compromising over who got the remote for the afternoon. But even in those early years, Cartoon Network, it felt different. The presentation was playful, the commercials were weird, and the channel, it had personality. It wasn't just airing cartoons, it was curating them. And then, in the mid-90s, everything changed. This is where Cartoon Network stopped being a library and started becoming a laboratory. With the launch of What a Cartoon, the network began funding creator-driven shorts, many of which evolved into their own full series. This led to an explosion of original content that didn't talk down to kids. Dexter's Laboratory mixed mad science with sibling chaos. Johnny Bravo turned Elvis-inspired narcissism into slapstick gold. Cow and Chicken, it leaned into surreal humor that made absolutely zero sense. And that was the point. And the Powerpuff Girls, they blended cute aesthetics with superhero violence and sharp satire. These shows were loud, fast, visually bold, and unapologetically weird. They trusted kids to keep up, and they trusted the adults to catch the jokes that were slipped in between the frames. Cartoon Network, it was no longer following trends. It was setting them now. Then came Toonami. Launched in 1997, it wasn't just a programming block. It was, and I hate saying it, a whole vibe. It was hosted by the now iconic spacebound AI, Tom. And Toonami, it treated animation like an event. This was where action lived. Dragon Ball Z turned power-ups into rituals kids would do at home. Gundam Wing brought war, politics, and moral ambiguity to after-school TV. And Outlaw Star and Inuyasha expanded what animation could look and feel like for a younger audience. For many Western viewers, Toonami was their first real exposure to anime that wasn't heavily edited into obscurity. Even the music mattered. Industrial beats, hip-hop influences, and moody visuals. Toonami, it invited you in. And suddenly, cartoons weren't just for kids, they were cool. Like something that your older siblings would watch and you would want to sneak a peek of. As the early 2000s rolled in, Cartoon Network kept pushing boundaries. Samurai Jack, it proved that silence could be just as powerful as dialogue. There were entire episodes that played out like visual poetry. Courage the Cowardly Dog or The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, it was some kids' first taste of what could be called horror. Ben 10, it showed kids that there's a hero inside all of us. Justice League and Justice League Unlimited showed that super stories could be serialized, mature, and emotionally complex. Teen Titans, it blended anime influences with Western storytelling, balancing humor, action, and heartbreak. Codename Kids Next Door and Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends showed the upper limits of childhood imagination. Meanwhile, Toonami, it continued to evolve, eventually expanding into the later hours of the night, and it paved the way for Adult Swim, which took experimentation even further with shows like Aqua Teen Hunger Force and The Boondocks. Cartoon Network, it wasn't afraid to confuse people, or to alienate them, or to try something that might fail. That willingness to gamble is what made it so special. Of course, not every era was smooth. The late 2000s saw its own identity struggles. Live-action experiments like Destroy Build Destroy or Dude What Would Happen, they weren't all bad, but they definitely weren't cartoons. The programming shifts didn't quite land, and Toonami even disappeared for a while. And for many fans, it felt like the soul of the network went with it. But then, something rare happened. Cartoon Network actually listened. Toonami returned in 2012, reimagined for a new generation, but was guided by the same respect for animation. Shows like Naruto Shippuden, Attack on Titan, My Hero Academia, and Demon Slayer, it brought anime back into the spotlight, but this time with a global fandom that was already built in. At the same time, Cartoon Network experienced another creative renaissance. The Marvelous Misadventures of Flapjack made intricately drawn shows more palatable. Adventure Time, it embraced emotional depth beneath candy-colored chaos. Regular Show, it turned the life of 20-something burnouts into surreal comedy. And Steven Universe tackled identity, trauma, and empathy in ways that children's TV rarely attempts. The Amazing World of Gumball brought the budding world of fast-paced humor from the internet back to your television. And Ben 10 Alien Force and Generator Rex showed us that the hero inside all of us doesn't ever go away, but it grows stronger the older that we get. These weren't just cartoons. They were important conversations that were just waiting to be had. So why does all of this matter? Because Cartoon Network proved that animation doesn't have to fit into a box. It showed that cartoons could be funny and sincere, stylized and experimental, lighthearted and heavy. It trusted its creators, respected its audience, and treated kids like people who could actually handle complexity. Toonami, in particular, helped normalize anime in the West. Without it, anime fandoms as we know today would look completely different. These weren't just shows that we watched. They were worlds we lived in after school. They shaped our humor, our taste, our storytelling, and even how we process our emotions. Cartoon Network and Toonami didn't just evolve with time. They helped to define it. They showed us that animation has no ceiling, that creativity thrives when rules are bent, and they taught us the most important lesson of all, that you can be different, you can be weird, and you can still be loved fondly because of it. Thank you for watching this video. I know I listed a good handful of shows, but there are dozens of amazing ones that I didn't even go into depth on. Total Drama Island, The Secret Saturdays, Camp Lazlo, Chowder, 16, Johnny Test, My Gym Partner's a Monkey, Robot Boy, Batman the Brave and the Bold, Hero 108, Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated, Mad TV, Over the Garden Wall. They have a whole catalog of bangers, and I'm guessing that you liked at least one of them. So let me know, what was your favorite Cartoon Network show? Or, if you have any ideas for videos that you want to see in the future, drop them down below. We may just talk about it. Peace.